I was absolutely stunned to be told that that news clip was still tacked to the wall in the derelict, dark, dank dungeon, which was the ruins of WYEP FM radio. It had to have been tacked up there in the summer of 1984. We abandoned the facility thereabouts. I guess when people pulled out, that was just left on the wall. And for more than a quarter of a century, it has been tacked to that wall, miraculously surviving until Merritt could stumble into the ruins and find it still tacked to the wall. I started out, and Anita started out, who worked with me on the Iona documentary, and most of the people on our particular news program on YP started out actually as print journalists. I was the editor of a newspaper called the Pittsburgh News-Sun. The Pittsburgh News-Sun was the dominant alternative newspaper of Pittsburgh at the time. It was the precursor to what became In Pittsburgh, and that was the precursor to what became the city paper, which now is just called CP. So I was the editor of the equivalent of the city paper at the time. There was a dispute at the newspaper. The owner did not like the kind of rabble-rousing news stories that we were doing. We were coming out of a late 60s, early 70s, sort of like counterculture kind of mindset. Didn't like those kinds of stories, didn't think they were commercial. So he fired us all. And we looked around and we said, well, we're still together as a news team. There must be another way of doing this kind of journalism. YP was a community radio station where it was open to all kinds of participation from the community. We went to YP, we said we want to do this story of investigative journalism, and they said, okay, what time's a good time for you to start? Our news program actually was every, it's called The Weekly Reader. It was a weekly news program. It was every Sunday afternoon on YP. It was repeated on Tuesday and Thursday evenings on YP, but after we did the show, then it was also rebroadcast on the Radio Information Service for the Blind, which was broadcast off of WDUQ on a sub-channel at that time. And it was also broadcast on WRCT, which is the CMU radio station. It's really sad to think about some of the guys from the old days at YP who are not with us anymore. It was a very, very mixed population of people in there. I would say it was about 50-50 black and white, old and young, male and female, Jewish and Arab, every kind of mix almost that you could think of. Harry the Wire was a real pioneer and promoter of punk rock music in this city. Harry the Wire is gone; he's no longer with us. Spider-Man was ran another 1950s rock radio show. He also made a living selling flowers on the streets of Pittsburgh and doing DJ functions for dances and parties. Spider-Man's dead; he's no longer with us. Mad Mike had been a big name radio DJ in Pittsburgh on a mainstream radio station in the 50s and early 60s. His shooting star flamed to earth. He became a taxi driver. He did a 50s radio rock radio show on YP. Kept us on the air with his engineering talents. He's dead. He's no longer with us. Buck Bryce, a black guy from Homestead who grew up there, displaced in 1940 when a third of the city was demolished. He did a nice program called The Late Late Show in the wee hours of the morning up until dawn. Easy listening music, blues, a lot of blues. Buck Bryce is dead. He's no longer with us. When I think back, so many of those people are gone. We're talking more than a quarter of a century ago. We're talking 30 years ago. This is ancient history now. It was a different age, a different time, a different era, a different mindset, trying to do a different thing. And I'm just stunned and amazed that there's anything left at all from those days.